All right, my friends, we are in it for day 3 of this little summer nutrition reset roadmap mini training. So we have created clarity on where we are, what our starting point is, and we've started to develop the inner compass that's going to guide us along our roadmap. And so today, all that's left is to put the pieces together in order to have relatively smooth sailing across our roadmap to get to our destination. So if you haven't already, I recommend that you go back and you listen to the clarity and the compass piece in order for this to make a little bit more sense. I do want to set the tone for the room for a moment. I'm back downstairs today. So it is summer. It's the middle of the day. We have kids home, we have dogs home, and the roofers are still roofing next door, but they have tended to move a little bit closer to the upstairs room. So it was a little bit extra noisy up there. So if you hear any background noise, I do apologize. Just know that that's going on. So working with what we have been able to gather, hopefully over the past couple of days, you've been inspired to maybe journal, maybe jot down some notes about your why your destination is meaningful. And, even work through that do don't list, that little comparison checklist to where we can say, does this opportunity, does this choice, does this decision line up with my do list, or is it more closely aligned with the don't? And the thing about that I want to go in today, I want to start there because I really want to fill in some of the gaps and fill in some of the holes. So this is really, really clear for you as you move forward through the rest of your summer experience. And so part of the reason that we really want clarity around some of these things is the fact that we are unconsciously spending so much of our energy on making decisions like this. Do I want to do this? Do I want to eat this? Is this going to be good for me? Should I be exercising like this? So on and so forth. And so if you're someone that is dealing with hormonal issues, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, PCOS, menopause, any one of those things, then you probably would be willing to raise your hand that you deal with a fair amount of fatigue, maybe even some brain fog. And so when we think about what's already going on in our bodies and go back to the fact that our metabolism is designed to adapt to stress, we might start to recognize where spending a lot of time making these decisions is in fact stressful. Right. And so we're putting a lot of extra pressure on our brains to make these choices, make these decisions, which ultimately wind up putting us in what I refer to as epic land. Anyone ever been there? Like, this just doesn't even matter. I can't be thinking about this. I can't be doing this. It's just going to have to wait till the end of summer. It's just going to have to wait till Monday. It's just going to have to wait till next month. All these different things. And this is one of the most challenging parts of coaching for me, really, especially as a coach. I'll do consultations with prospective clients all the time. And, for some people, waiting for a better time is the right answer. But a lot of folks will come back and say, okay, well, after the holidays, well, after this celebration, so on and so forth. And I want to remind you once again how additionally that yo-yo effect, not only is it stressful on your hormones, it's stressful on you mentally, it's stressful on you emotionally, and then of course it's stressful on your physical body as well, outside of the hormone component. And so going to effort land, essentially perpetuates that yo-yo effect. And so our goal in finding and creating this compass and smoothing the road through this roadmap is to alleviate some of these bumps, these twists, and these turns that lead you feeling like you need to get off the path, right? We want to look at our roadmap not as this linear straight up and down, but we have times where we take a turn and we'll go a certain period of time in one direction, and then we'll start to trend up, and then we might go back the other direction. And so it ebbs and it flows. It is not linear. The sooner that we can break away from the thought pattern that our journey, our experience needs to be linear, the sooner we can start to actually make progress. How many times have you done a diet, done a workout regimen? By the way, guys, I'm just going to reiterate that every time I mention these things, it's because it's been my exact experience, where you've really just expected linear results. I had a client be vulnerable enough to share with me, this was a couple of months ago, one of her big mindset limitations around her macro tracking and weight loss was the fact that she anticipated that if she went under her macros, that the scale would be less the next day. If she went over her macros, that the scale would be more the next day. And if she hit her macros, then things would be the same. Which, by the way, none of this was true. But she'd spent so much time in things like Weight Watchers and diet culture that she directly correlated her intake with the outcome on the scale. And so when I hear clients share things like this with me, it just brings light to how many more people out there are having the exact same struggles. I actually did a podcast interview for someone else's podcast yesterday. It'll release sometime in July. So if you follow me on Instagram, I will be sure to share that when she drops it. But one of the questions that she asked me is what I think one of the biggest struggles for women, we were specifically talking about PCOS, for women with PCOS, it's holding them back from achieving the results that they desire. And the answer was easy. And it's the fact that we have these perceptions, these mindsets around what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel like. And so when the reality doesn't match up with that, it's too frustrating, disappointing, overwhelming. It makes us feel like a failure that we just give up. And so understanding that the more clarity that we have around where we're going gives us a more streamlined direction to get there. That building that inner compass helps us break through all the noise and all the bullshit that's out there saying like, hey, go do this. Hey, go do this. Hey, go do this. And that we can start to understand that there's ebbs and there's flows, there's peaks and there's valleys to this entire experience. Then we're going to keep going. And let me tell you what the quickest way to getting any result is. It's not giving up, right? This is an interesting question that I see a lot of coaches post like on Facebook that are essentially baiting people. And they'll say, you know, if you didn't give up, how many months would it take for you to get to your weight loss goal or something like that? The interesting part about that is, and I reflect on this often, is it's really, really true. And it's not about, you know, sticking with some restrictive plan or buying some shake for X amount of months and you're going to hit your goal. But if you're truly willing to be honest and vulnerable with yourself, if we were a little bit more open-minded and expansive to the fact that we can have different seasons in our journey, that we can have, you know, these straightaways and then curve up and curve back and all these things, and not let that be the thing that stops us, would we still be struggling like we are now? I say we because I was right there. I spent the majority of my 20s fighting with my body. Because by the way, guys, a lot of the stuff that I teach, both in these workshops, these trainings, speak about on my podcast, coach my women through, are not things that I learned in school. I learned the science. I know a lot about that. But the biggest revelation that I had, because I spent years just coaching on the science, is that the science doesn't matter if we can't break through the barriers that are keeping us from being able to understand it, embody it, really get through it. Which is why I am so passionate about the fact that our medical care providers are not helping our cause. So when I was asked in that interview yesterday, what I felt was the number one factor holding women with PCOS back, I was really, really clear and really, really sure on that answer, because I know it's what held me back for so long. I was a fitness professional, teaching group classes, teaching yoga, training people. I knew all the nutrition. I knew everything to do. Straight, linear, do this. This is what you get. And guess what? Not what I got. And so this is the whole reason that I created the roadmap. And so I use that. And so the roadmap, by the way, as I said before I started this mini training, I'm not holding anything back here. The roadmap is exactly what I walk my clients through in my coaching program. And it's obviously a lot more extensive than what I've gone over in 3 days, but the intention is the same. You have to have clarity as to where you're going. Having someone else direct you isn't helpful. We have to have that inner compass, and we have to be able to navigate the roadmap all the way through in order to be successful. And so by creating that clarity, we're releasing some of the mental fatigue, the mental decision making. You know, if you're a mom, like there's so many decisions you have to make, right? Like what's for dinner, who's going to get the grocery store, all these different things. You know, I've literally told my husband so many times when he's like, "How can I help?" I'm like, "Literally, you could just make a decision. That would be amazing, right?" And so relieving that is a huge, huge first step that literally will transform your journey for the better if that is the one thing that you take away from this 3-day training. Building on that, so we have our do-don't list. Building on that and creating that inner compass and really understanding things like sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and cravings. So how these decisions, how these choices are affecting you. And then again, comparing that back to the do-don't list. I went through in yesterday's training some of my things, but starting to tune in and starting to be really clear, your body is not going to let you down. Let me tell you what will let you down. Random influencers trying to sell you something on Instagram, random YouTube workouts, random detox shakes let you down every single time. Your body will never let you down. The tricky part is breaking through all the noise so that you can actually tune in and listen. And so I'm pulling some of this from my Strong for the Summer program, because I created that program because I wholeheartedly believe in, you know, what we're doing there. And I think it is so important for folks to recognize that the journey isn't always about weight loss. And I know the majority of you guys listening to this are listening to me because what you desire ultimately is weight loss. But by understanding how profound it is to actually be able to listen to that inner compass to learn what's going on here, the easier it's going to be to get to that weight loss. And so at the beginning of this 3-day training, I asked you to look in 30 days in the future, not that far. By the way, I mean, I'm like 33 days away from my due date. So anyone that's pregnant, so interesting. This is just a little side tangent as I do. With my first 2, I was like, get out of me. And this one, I've got so much to do, like work-wise, house-wise, all these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've only got 33 days. 30 days is nothing. Can we get really clear about this short amount of time? And if you spend 30 days not focusing on weight loss, but focusing on really amplifying and building up that inner compass, sticking to the clarity you gained by knowing what you do and do not want, where would you actually be in terms of your health, your energy, your mood, all these things at the end of 30 days? And by the way, I'm not saying that you won't lose weight from doing that, not at all. The really interesting thing that my clients experience every single week is that they are so shocked that when they get into the understanding, the creating that compass, that they're actually able to lose weight without thinking about it, without doing anything. And so if we spent the next 30 days saying, I'm going to ride this map, I'm going to ride this train, whatever your vehicle is. I love the water, so it's always ships. We're going to ride the ship. What would be different if you went into a weight loss journey really understanding how your metabolism was speaking to you, how your hormones were communicating with you, what was really true for your body, and what is just excess noise that you don't need to worry about. How you can align decisions and choices based on what you do and do not want to experience, feel, wake up to. What would change? And so the other thing about this, which by the way, I always preface this, like if you have a food allergy, then we don't eat those things. But once again, if we turned our focus away from this food is bad, this food is good, I should be doing this, I shouldn't be eating this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and tuned back into that compass and let that compass truly be the guide, how would that feel? What would that change? Would that move us from a place of restriction and deprivation in order to hit my goal closer to a place of self-trust, self-efficacy, autonomy, and actually be able to create a plan that is sustainable, exciting, fulfilling, and also successful? I want you to pause for a minute and just do a mental check-in and think about all the times that you've joined, like, I don't know, 30-day, downloaded a free meal plan on the internet or joined like, a quick program. You're like, this doesn't cost very much. I'm just going to do this, and it doesn't even really matter if it works or not. And then on these programs, on these lists, it's this you can't eat, this you can't eat, this is what you have to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How does that make you feel? Does that truly make you feel ownership in your own body? Like you have ownership, like you have control, which going back to, one of our core needs, like our ego thrives on control. I'm not saying that we need to have that all the time. We got to let go sometimes. But if your ego is constantly seeking control and you're putting it in a scenario where it has no control, what do you think the outcome is going to truly be? Probably not great, right? And so this is actually, interestingly enough, so part of the STRONG method, which is my 12-week program. And so it stands for Strengthen, Transform, Build Resilience through Ownership, Nutrition, and Guidance. And so that's one of the O is ownership, because that's one of the big pieces. And we've actually started to reframe the way that we are coaching and providing support for women to create more element of that ownership. Because something that I've seen from my professional experience is, regardless of the type of container that I try to hold for folks and saying, this is about you, there's still so much fear around, I can't trust myself to make the best decision for me. And regardless of how many times I say, you know better than me, I'm here, I'm the lighthouse. I'm here to guide you in, right? Here to support you, help you navigate, help you see. But at the end of the day, when it comes to your metabolism, your hormones, finding balance in your body. Remember, our metabolism is always craving that balance, that homeostasis. I can't do that for folks. And so I share this with you to continue to empower you and reinforce the idea of how much change, how much of a shift you can make in your body, in your mind, and in your experience by really leaning into this do-don't list, this clarity piece, this compass piece, this understanding that your roadmap is not straight up and down, right? Because the other thing about the linear process, the straight process, I know this is super cheesy. It's like what goes up, or the scale must come, the scale going down, like going up just straight, just a linear process must come down, which means most people fall off. But leaning into, we can have a breather here, and then we're going to go up. And then we're going to cut back across. We're going to have a breather here. So much more space to explore your body, to explore your nutrition, to explore your movement, to explore your experience. And then we get to my absolute most favorite part. Actually, I'm going to share a client story because this actually brought tears to my eyes. So this client's been working with me since September, I believe, of last year. And so pretty good ways. And when she started, she was, pretty adamant. We had a significant amount of weight to lose. She was pretty adamant that, everything needed to trend down every single week. We needed progress every single week. And so we spent a lot of time on mindset and, reframing things and things like that. And she's come such a long way. And so this week in her check-in, I was reading through her responses and, I got to the end of it and I was sitting there thinking for a moment. I was like, how am I going to respond to this? Because I didn't have one. And not because she stumped me, but because she did all the reframing herself. And so that was my response. I was like, have you read in between the lines here? And, her response to me was, she was like, actually, I'm really just super proud of the fact that I started to write this out and I was able to reframe every single thing. And so for her, she desired a pretty linear process. But we've been able to take breathers. We've been able to take breaks. We've created expansion for her to actually learn to reframe that. And so while she's committed to working with me for some more time, I am so excited to truly trust and have full confidence that when she's ready to go out on her own, that it's not going to be a situation of she went all the way up and then she's going to go all the way back down, because she knows how to roll with the waves. And so what I'm trying to offer you here through clarity, through creating this inner compass, through building this roadmap, is the exact same thing. And so course correcting, sorry, the roofers are basically on top of our yard. So the course correcting within the roadmap, because again, even if the roadmap, we're able to roll with the waves, there's always going to be some course correcting, right? Once we're able to assess, then we have to be able to modify. We have to be able to make changes. And so really understanding that when we hit a road that's closed, that doesn't mean turn around and go back home. What that means is pause, reflect, and redirect. And so rather than constantly feeling like we need to be back on track, rather than constantly feeling like we need to start again, stop again, rather than constantly feel like we need to just look the other way until Monday morning, mastering the art of the pause, which is mindfulness, and being able to say, what is my next best option? What is my next best step? Because what we're trying to cultivate by creating this inner compass is this low level of awareness at all times. And so again, looking at, I'm not aware of anything, I'm super obsessed with everything. We don't want either one of those. We want to be able to bounce back and forth in the middle and just create this little wave of, I'm aware, I'm mindful, I'm conscious of the decisions that I'm making. I know how this is going to impact my sleep, mood, energy cravings. I know how this lines up with my do-don'ts. I know how this influences how I want to be, how I want to feel, what I want to accomplish, without it letting it be just glaring you in the face all the time. Like, oh my gosh, it's just low level. This is what's happening. This is my experience. And then going back to that ownership piece, because I'm not saying that we don't ever make decisions that we know it's probably not going to yield the outcome that we truly desire. And so at that point, being able to say, I fully accept responsibility for this choice, this decision. And then being able to say, this is not a start over again on Monday situation. This is, I take my next best step. I was chatting with a coach who actually coaches golfers. And so I don't know anything about golf. And so she was making this analogy, and she was like, when golfers bogey a hole, so I get that that's bad, but I don't really know what that means. She's like, the game's not over. They have the next hole and they just hit their next best, whatever stroke. I don't know the terminology. But I've been rolling that around in my brain. I was like, how do I come up with something a little bit better than that, that I can understand so that I can better share. But if you do know anything about golf, maybe that makes sense to you. But for a lot of folks, they'll overeat. They'll make a decision that wasn't perfectly aligned with how they want to feel, and they let that be a downward spiral. And so our inner compass is going to guide us and say, we don't want to just be like, oh, that's okay. But at the same time, we do, right? We want to have that compassion, but we also want to say, like, we're not going to let our compassion turn into, I'm going to go tumbling headfirst down the hill, right? We're going to be compassionate enough to say, okay, next meal, next choice, next decision. How am I going to change this outcome? Without beating ourselves up, without judging, without criticizing. Because the more decisions that we make that are aligned with how we want to feel, how we want to show up, what we want to accomplish, the more likely we are to continue showing up as that person, that version of ourselves. And so one bad decision shouldn't inform 10 other potential good decisions. The same way that your 10 good decisions may not have informed that one bad decision, right? And so what I want to leave you with, to kind of tie in the loose ends, is I would love for you to reflect on what we've been through the past 3 days and get really clear on where this roadmap is taking you. So that today's Thursday, if you're listening to this on the day it's recorded, otherwise you can insert whatever day. We've got another weekend coming up. If you're listening to this before the next holiday, we have another holiday coming up. So how are you going to create conditions to experience the things that you want to experience while also honoring your health, your hormones, your happiness, and your future? Because it's not one or the other. It's both. And the more conditioned we get to practice them as both, the better off we're going to become. This is how you lose weight, you balance your hormones, you do whatever you want to accomplish, and you look back over your shoulder and you're like, gosh, this was easy. I don't even really know how I got here. Doesn't mean it's easy in the process, but that's the goal. And if you lean into trusting yourself, believing in yourself, trusting the process, then it absolutely is possible for you. I am so honored that you have listened to me for the past 3 days. I hope that this was helpful. I always am open to feedback. I love feedback on how this is resonating, how this is helping, how this is supporting you. It helps me inform future workshops and trainings. I do have the next one scheduled for July 5th. So it's a Tuesday, it's an evening. If you can make that live, it's called the Results Roadmap. We're going to build on some of the concepts that I've talked about in this 3-day training. So I would love to have you there. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and have an amazing weekend.